All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Me here talking about real music in real time for you guessed it. Real people just like you right there and just like me right here. Lou Gramm. When I first started doing this channel, I was talking about Lou Gramm quite a bit because there were people who were being cruel via social media pretty much even before the whole cancel culture thing got cranked up. People were saying mean things about Lou Gramm. And I'm like, you understand what Lou Gramm has gone through, right? You understand the struggle he had having the brain tumor. A lot of people just didn't know because what happened in the world of classic rock is, well, classic rock kind of went away and nobody really was all that concerned about Lou Gramm, even though his voice can be heard pretty much every day all around the world on all kinds of ginormous hit songs that Foreigner recorded and solo music that Lou recorded, like Midnight Blue and Just Between You and Me. I mean, try singing Just Between You and Me sometime, you amateur vocalist. Let's see you get that high note that Lou purposefully just shows off on and basically tells the world, even in 1990, that he was still the king of both rock and top 40 at that moment. Didn't need his former bandmate Mick Jones at the time because both of them were bickering, and Foreigner and Lou Gramm had parted ways for a while. And then, of course, eventually, after Lou was diagnosed and then tried to come back, the band said, you know what, we're going to hire a new singer, which was really devastating. And a lot of fans at the time were just needlessly dumping on Lou. And I would do these videos saying, you understand the guy had a brain tumor, and the brain tumor was quite large. And when he was first diagnosed with the brain tumor, they basically said, well, there's not much you can do. So just go home. And unfortunately, you're not going to make it. And Lou Gramm, by chance, actually was watching a 2020 broadcast a night or two later. And there was a segment on Dr. Peter Black, who worked at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. And he was a kind of a pioneer in the whole laser brain surgery area. At the very end of what he had just watched, Black's office put out a phone number. And Lou obviously copied that down and called him the next day. Literally 2 days later, Lou Gramm was on the operating table for a 19-hour surgery. I mean, I guess when you say you're in someone else's hands at that point, you're literally in someone else's hands and there's nothing you can do. The other alternative, obviously, is that your life will be ending soon. By the way, Lou Gramm had this tumor when he was born. It just didn't affect him. It grew over the years and finally got big enough to, cause some problems in his life. So many problems. In fact, one of the symptoms that Lou Gramm had, and this is no joke, it's ironic, crazy, but Lou Gramm had double vision. Imagine you really do have double vision at this point, and you're living through a nightmare. And a lot of people just sort of at the time said, well, Lou's getting old. He can't sing anymore. And people just didn't know the story. Lou tried to come back with Foreigner, and, his bandmate, former bandmate, you could say current bandmate, because they've made amends and they're getting along these days, which is really good. But back in those days, things weren't too good. Mick Jones was saying things like, well, this just isn't acceptable. This isn't up to our standards, meaning the way Lou Gramm was singing. And so eventually they parted ways with Lou, and Lou went out on his own, and he was trying to sing the catalog on his own. Obviously, there was nothing preventing Lou Gramm from going out and performing. There was no contract that was signed. There was no non-compete. There was no, hey, you can't go out and earn a living singing these songs. And Mick Jones was frustrated because he thought that Lou Gramm was, destroying the legacy of Foreigner by doing that, by not, singing these songs the way he used to sing them. And this story continues. Kelly Hansen gets hired by Foreigner. Kelly Hansen was in a band called Hurricane. And he's a pretty good vocalist, and he seems to be a pretty good guy. I think he realized that, hey, I'm part of this legacy band now. I'm the new face of this band. A lot of people who like Foreigner, though, kind of complained that Hansen was more like Steven Tyler with his stage persona, whereas Lou Gramm was just a guy who got out there and sang and was a front man just based on how great he performed, which is a big difference between the entertainment value that Kelly Hansen was providing. Some Foreigner fans felt that it didn't kind of fit what the band had done prior. I mean, Mick Jones, pretty much a statue on stage for his entire career, so it wasn't like he was doing windmill moves on the guitar. So as time went on, though, the ice began to thaw, and people were informed a little bit more about what Lou Gramm had gone through. Yours truly, I was talking constantly about, hey, stop dumping on Lou Gramm. And Lou Gramm's voice began to recover. It took years, but he doesn't sound like he did, obviously, back in the 1980s. But guess what? He is singing at full strength and has been for a few years now. He tends to not to shy away from those difficult notes that he can still hit. I think most of the stuff is performed in the original key. Again, he might, on a super high note, he might go the other way. I mean, musicians and vocalists have been doing this stuff for a number of years. Billy Joel says it's like throwing off-speed stuff instead of the fastball, kind of change up where the audience is kind of expecting this, but they get that, but they're not all that distracted by it, and the song continues and nobody feels as though they got cheated. I think most of the time when you get older and your voice isn't what it used to be, you have to kind of find ways to get around these things. Lou Gramm, though, got stronger and stronger over time, and eventually the good news is that he was invited back to sing with Foreigner, the famous, I think it was the Jones Beach reunion in New York, which was a big deal, and subsequent appearances with Foreigner since then, where everybody is on stage, the old band, the new band, and everybody kind of knows their place, and people seem to get along. Kelly Hansen, Lou Gramm, they seem to like each other, which is a good thing. But more importantly, the legacy of Lou Gramm is intact as being one of the greatest singers in rock history. And so much music, by the way, that Lou either recorded as a solo artist. He recorded this album with this band called Shadow King, which you should go listen to if you haven't heard Shadow King. Absolutely amazing stuff. He was in a group called Black Sheep prior to Foreigner, and that's some good stuff too. Very organic hard rock and 70s music. And then, of course, there's the Foreigner catalog, which a lot of it has been kind of forgotten about or focus tested off of radio. Woman in Black is one of my favorite all-time Foreigner songs that doesn't see the light of day anymore. And there are so many others. Reaction to Action is a fun song to go listen to. So in any event, that's my Lou Gramm synopsis. One of the great singers of all time, and certainly deserves the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Lou, I'm sorry that Mick might have spoiled that for everybody, but that band, and especially that vocalist, Lou Gramm, he deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.